theaters are, of course, entirely empty. You do understand that box office flop, Snow White, lost hundreds of millions of dollars for Disney. She decides to rage post behind every strong woman.
No one on the right side of America can stand the star of this movie.
You don't seemingly like your own character, so she comes off as an insufferable, whiny brat.
And they decided to cast Rachel Zegler, who is Hispanic and white. Now, again, you can cast people however you want to cast people. I really don't care.
There's something wrong with her. She's disturbed, she's unhappy, and she thinks it's about feminism and the patriarchy and about abortion. The reality is she's just not stable, like the majority of people in Hollywood. They're just not stable human beings. I would highly advise that you boycott this film, no matter how much.
Who hates when I win. The winged victory came to the loop in pieces, and people still line up to see her. Oh my gosh. And I can only hope that despite my flaws, despite my cracks and my breaks, and there are many of them, that at every premiere, everything I do, people...
Snow White, there's an enormous amount of controversy surrounding Snow White.
Disney's Snow White, which was expected to be a billion-dollar smash, ended up being one of Hollywood's worst letdowns, with Rachel Zegler at the core of the problem. Ranging from heated interviews to relentless internet attacks, Rachel Zegler's viral outburst only made things worse. This is the full story of how Snow White went from Disney dream to total disaster. Rachel Zegler made it apparent in a now viral video that she was having a hard time dealing with the criticism she was receiving for her part in the live-action Snow White remake from Disney. Zegler, who was filming from what looked to be her bedroom, responded to her detractors with a mixture of anger and annoyance, stating that people were still coming to support her work in spite of the overwhelming hostility. As she defended her performance and denounced the negative internet debate that has surrounded the film since its release, her tone fluctuated between weeping vulnerability and passive-aggressive wrath. Rachel Zegler seems to compare herself to the famed sculpture in a now-famous video, stating, "I can only hope that despite my flaws, my cracks, and my breaks, and there are many that at every premiere, at every event I do, people will wait in line to see." Even if the winged victory arrived to the Louvre in parts, the internet had other intentions and will never forget how Rachel Zegler's Snow White became a Disney disaster. Within minutes, clips from her video went viral. On X, previously Twitter, Tokayers combined her comments with reaction videos that ranged from confused astonishment to full-blown comedy routines ridiculing her apparent self-importance, turning what had begun as a passionate moment into meme fuel. Zegler had inadvertently provided her detractors with the perfect soundbite that validated their preconceived notions, rather than the redemption arc she had been striving for. The dispute didn't start out of nowhere, and the response wasn't abrupt. Since the initial information about Disney's live-action Snow White remake was made public a long time ago, emotions had been building. Disney fans were perplexed and, in some cases, incensed by the drastic changes made to the beloved 1937 classic Snow White. The first full-length animated film in history was being rewritten, romance was out, and female leadership was in. However, it wasn't just the reimagined plot that caused controversy. In resurfaced interview clips, Rachel Zegler made fun of the original love story, calling it strange and creepy, saying, "A guy literally stalks her? Yeah, weird," smirking and dismissing the prince's role completely. In another interview, she made it clear that her Snow White wouldn't be saved by a prince or dreaming about true love, but would instead be a fearless modern woman rewriting her own story. Memes and video snippets of Zegler's interviews and moments from the original movie were widely shared on social media, emphasizing how detached the new remake seemed from the charm of a historic Disney flop. Concern wasn't limited to fringe online trolls. Her comments regarding the narrative that had meant so much to generations frightened off families, Disney acolytes, and even casual viewers. The numbers followed. Tangible proof of the film's poor reception in spite of its massive $250 million budget, even though Snow White was one of Disney's most expensive live-action films ever. It only made $43 million domestically on its first weekend of release. The Little Mermaid made a great $95 million launch despite considerable online criticism. Critics were shocked by the sharp contrast, Some called it Disney's worst error in years, while others were harsher and called it a total failure. Theater chains responded quickly, quietly withdrawing Snow White from high-end screens and swapping it out for more successful movies in a matter of days. The movie had been taken out of cinemas entirely by the second week. Disney, a studio renowned for controlling the box office, had never seen this before. Its live-action remakes, including Beauty and the Beast, Aladdin, and The Lion King, had all been surefire hits, but this time, viewers weren't simply disinterested. They were actively rejecting the movie. As soon as the numbers collapsed, the internet returned to the archives and brought up the receipts again. Her claim that she should receive payment for every hour that Snow White was streamed online was among her most well-known statements. If I'm going to stand there for 18 hours a day in a dress as an iconic Disney princess, I deserve to be paid for every single hour that it's streamed. Every controversial incident, derisive remark, and quotation from Zegler that angered people came after this declaration. Meant to be a statement about fair wages in Hollywood quickly turned into something else entirely. Instead of rallying support, it came across as entitled, which fueled the perception that Rachel Zegler felt she was somehow above the very film she was leading. This wasn't just about Snow White anymore. It became a symbol of a much larger frustration among audiences who were tired of beloved classics being rebooted and stripped of their original charm. Fans weren't just criticizing this new Snow White. They were fighting back against a broader trend of reimagined stories that felt disconnected from what once made Disney films magical. Even Gal Gadot, who played the evil queen, seemed to sense the chaos throughout the press tour, and it became increasingly clear that she was subtly but unmistakably distancing herself from the film and from her co-star. Some initially blamed Rachel's lack of chemistry, but as more interviews and appearances revealed, it became impossible to ignore the two actresses' differences. Rachel enthusiastically embraced a contemporary feminist interpretation of the story, frequently denouncing the 1937 classic as problematic and out of date. Gal remained calm and avoided controversial remarks, focusing instead on the film's aesthetics and her excitement for playing a renowned adversary. She described the initiative as a fresh approach in interviews, using measured words and sensitivity without demeaning the original. This disparity in approach was most noticeable during joint interviews with Rachel, who made bold and contentious claims. Unlike other co-stars who exuded warmth and friendliness, Rachel and Gal's tension was apparent when they presented an award together at the Oscars. Gal showed that she was managing the issue precisely and well aware of the blowback that was happening in real time by just nodding, smiling, and acting neutrally. The distance between the two superstars grew even more noticeable in the weeks that followed. While Rachel's future became uncertain, the woman kept getting huge parts and maintaining her A-list reputation. There were rumors that studios were reevaluating her participation in future productions. There were no friendly gestures, no shared chuckles, and no chemistry between the two stars. Gal actually shifted her body away from Rachel as she leaned gently toward her at one point. While some regarded it as a typical Hollywood ploy, others speculated that Gal was attempting to preserve her reputation in the wake of the internet uproar over Rachel's remarks. At one point, Rachel Zegler was hailed as Hollywood's next great thing after West Side Story was seen as a warning tale. What she claimed to be confidence began to read as arrogance, and her bold attempts to update a classic were perceived as condescending rather than uplifting. In Hollywood, where perception is everything, Rachel's attempts to alter the storyline backfired, and she hasn't yet expressed genuine regret or done what famous people typically do when they get criticism. Every mistake seems to make it more difficult to find the way back. Only after exhibiting humility or figuring out how to reconnect with fans have some superstars bounced back from more difficult circumstances. Rachel has neither, at least not just now. It is unclear if she will be able to bounce back or if her Disney future is now forever gone. Is this the beginning of a protracted freeze-out, or will Hollywood give her another chance? Please share your thoughts in the comments below, and remember to like and subscribe if you want in-depth examinations of celebrity controversies.